Hi everyone, this is Miss Afric here. Today we're going to be talking about another piece of the puzzle when it comes to parabolas, and that is working backwards to actually come up with the equation for a parabola rather than the graph. Alright, in the last video that talked about parabolas, we talked about, well, given an equation, look at all this information that I can figure out, and look at how I can graph this. Well, right now we're going to be talking about going backwards. So, given certain pieces of information, can I come up with the equation of a parabola? Alright, there are a few things that'll help in terms of finding what that equation is. Alright, one of the first things it's really important that you're able to recognize is which way does it open. Alright, you have to be able to recognize whatever information they're giving you. You have to be able to recognize which way that parabola is going to open, because that's going to tell you which equation to use, which standard form to use. Right? We have the equation x minus h squared equals 4p times y minus k. And this is the equation we would use if it opens up or down. And then we also have y minus k squared equals 4p times x minus h. And that's the equation we would use if it opens left or right. Alright, so it's really important we know which way it opens, because that determines which of these two equations we're using. Another thing to keep in mind, if it opens down or if it opens left, alright, both of those would mean 4p is negative, because down and left, those are both two negative directions. So that's another important thing to remember. I'll start it. Okay. Another thing that you have to know in order to write the equation is you have to know what the vertex is. Alright, and that vertex is going to represent the h comma k part of your equation up here. And then the last thing you'll have to know, well, take a look at that equation. If I know which one I'm using, and I know h and k, there should be only one piece left, and that's p. So you have to know what p is, and just keep in mind, p is just the distance from the vertex to the focus and the directrix. So, typically in these problems, you'll be given either the focus or the directrix. So to find p, we should only have to count from that point or that line to the vertex, and that's our p value. Alright, so let's take a look at a few examples. In example 1, it says, write the equation of the parabola given the vertex -5, 1 and the focus 2, 1. Alright, when I'm writing equations for parabolas, and really any conic, it definitely helps me to have a graph drawn. Doesn't have to be a perfect graph, but just it certainly helps you figure out which way your parabola should open. Alright, so I'm going to plot this information they give me. The vertex is at -5, 1. So there's my vertex. And then the focus is at 2, 1. So there's my focus. Remember what we talked about yesterday, that focus point is always inside of the parabola. So just knowing where the vertex is and where my focus is, I should know that this has to open to the right, because that focus has to be inside of my parabola. Alright, so that answers my first question. Which way does it open? Well, it opens to the right. Alright, since it opens to the right, that's the x direction, which means x is the variable that should not be squared. And right is also the positive direction, so 4p is positive. So the equation I should be using is y minus k squared equals positive 4p times x minus h. Alright, the next thing we talked about needing to know is that vertex. Luckily they gave it to me, so the vertex is going to be -5, 1. I can plug that in right away. Alright, remember with the vertex it's h, k, so make sure that k value goes with y, and the h, or the x coordinate, goes with x. And then the last piece is to figure out what p is. Alright, remember, like I said, P is the distance from the vertex to either the focus or the directrix. In this case, since I have the focus, it'll help me to know that it's the distance from the vertex to the focus. So I should be able to count that out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Alright, so I'm moving 7 to the right. That means that P is going to equal a 7. So all I have to do is plug that in. Y minus 1 squared equals 4 times 7 times x plus 5. And then when I simplify that, I end up with y minus 1 squared equals 28 times x plus 5. And there's the equation for that parabola. Alright, so 3 simple things that you need in order to write this equation. Which way it opens, where our vertex is, and what our p-value is. Let's try example 2. Example 2 says write the equation of the parabola given the vertex is 0, 3 and the directrix is y equals 4. Once again, I always graph. Now, you're not required to graph anything when it comes to writing the equations, but I find that it helps a lot. Alright, so at 0, 3, that's our vertex. And then my directrix, remember the directrix is a line, so my directrix is at y equals 4. So right above it, it's that horizontal line right here. Alright, just like we talked about, focus has to be inside the parabola, while the directrix has to be outside the parabola. Alright, so in order for this directrix to be outside my parabola, if this is my vertex, then it's going to have to open down. That's the only way to make it so that that directrix is outside of my parabola. Alright, so this is going to open down. And what that should tell you is down is a y direction, which means y should be the variable that's not squared. Alright, and also keep in mind that down, that's a negative direction. So the equation I should be using is x minus h squared equals negative 4p times y minus k. Alright, next thing I need to know is my vertex. Well, they gave me my vertex. It is 0, 3. Which means h should be 0, k should be 3. So I've got x minus 0 squared, which you could also write as just x squared, make it easier, equals negative 4p times y minus 3. And then the last piece is p. Okay, so once again, p is the distance from the vertex to either the focus or the directrix. So right here I can see that distance is just 1 unit. So p is going to equal 1. So if I plug that in, x squared equals negative 4 times 1 times y minus 3. And that'll give me x squared equals negative 4 times y minus 3. And there's the equation for our parabola. Notice how I'm not distributing this number out front. I want to leave it in standard form, and standard form has that number factored out, just like we did yesterday when we were graphing. Alright, so make sure you don't distribute that. Leave it in standard form. Alright, let's try one more. Oops. Alright, your example 3 should be a little different. I forgot to change mine on here. Yours should say, given the vertex 0, 0, and the focus negative 6, 0. Alright, that's the one yours should say, so that's the one we're going to do. Alright, write the equation of the parabola given the vertex 0, 0 and the focus negative 6, 0. So once again, I'm going to draw a quick little sketch. Help me out. My vertex will be at 0, 0. And my focus, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, will be at negative 6, 0. Focus has to be inside my parabola, so this is going to have to open to the left. Alright, the fact that it opens to the left means x is the variable that's not squared. And we also have to keep in mind that left is a negative direction, so the equation I should be using is y minus k squared equals negative 4p times x minus h. Alright, my vertex, they told me, is 0, 0. That makes it nice, because if I plug that in, we should just have y squared equals negative 4p times x. So now all I need is my p-value. Alright, well, I'm going to count it out. Distance from the vertex right here to the focus, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So p should end up equaling 6 then. When I plug that in, y squared equals negative 4 times 6x. So when I simplify that, we get y squared equals negative 24x. And there's our answer. Alright, any of these you could double check if you wanted to just go back and make sure that your equation, if you were to graph it, it matches the sketch that you made. So you could feel free to double check these if you need to. But that's all there is to writing the equation of a parabola. Alright, we'll do a couple more examples in class, and you'll get a chance to practice some on your own also. If there's anything you're still confused on, just make sure you go back and re-watch it. Alright, otherwise save those questions for class, and we will see you then.